For the people listening and watching who may not know, basically your son is Ross Ulbricht, who I believe at the age of 31 had created a $1 billion e-commerce website called Silk Road and is now serving 2 life sentences for it.
That just got a couple of errors.
Okay.
Just to straighten that out.
Okay.
It was
Please.
First of all, he was 26. He wasn't
Okay.
31. And it wasn't $1 billion, although that is often said in the media, which is completely inaccurate. The government's own estimate of everything on the Silk Road, legal and illegal and everything else, was 183 million. 180, a billion is 1,000 million.
Right.
183 million is a far cry from $1 billion. And often they'll say over $1 billion. It is not accurate. And I'm just going by the government's own stats. So
is it just the headlines in the media that are saying $1 billion, or was it the actual, was it the government who said it was over $1 billion?
No, the government said 183 million. It's the media, the media, echoing each other with false information, which happens all too frequently.
So how did this whole story begin for you with Ross and what he was doing? And can you just give me, from your perspective, how this whole thing unraveled and how long ago did this happen?
Ross is arrested 2013. Ross is arrested October 1st, 2013. And his father and I found out about it from Reuters. A Reuters reporter called us. We had no clue. And and then everything hit the fan, and all kinds of media were coming by the house, and they were saying Ross was involved with murder for hire, which was inconceivable and still is. And he was never charged with that at trial, by the way. And it just became a complete maelstrom of stuff. And my life's never been the same since, basically. That was pretty much it. It was actually October 2nd when we found out he was arrested October 1st. And I found out from a Reuters reporter who called us.
How close were you and Ross during that time? Or like the years leading up to that?
Well, Ross was living in California. I was living in Austin, Texas, and in Costa Rica, where we have business. So my husband and I. So we were close, and everything, and on good terms, and and always were, but we weren't living in the same state even. So and I wasn't with my daughter either. I mean, they both are doing their thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any idea like what he was doing for a living? Did he talk to you about like how he made his money, what he was doing every day? Or
he had a book business in Austin, an online book business called Good Wagon Books. And actually he contributed 10% or so to local charities from that business. And a friend, Renee Pinnell, said, "Hey, come on out to California where I am." Ross is ready to move on from the business. And he said, "I want to get into some venture capital stuff and some startups, and I want you to be involved," and like that. So he went out to California and was looking into that kind of thing. That's my understanding of what he was doing at that time. He did say that he was very on fire for freedom. He was very involved with the Ron Paul campaign in 2008, and he brought Ron Paul to Penn State when he was there as a graduate student, and became very passionate about free markets and about Bitcoin, and the potential for monetary freedom with Bitcoin, and told me about Bitcoin. In fact, I even said, "Should I get some?" And he said, "No, Mom, it's too volatile." And I'm like, wow, it was probably about 50 cents then. Okay. Anyway, that was a mistake. And in any case, he was very passionate about that and free markets. And he wanted to bring those principles and experience to people. And he created a video game to that end, but didn't get it published. And then turned to the internet and created the Silk Road website, which was based on the non-aggression principle of strictly voluntary interaction, no force. Strictly forbidden were things, and this is all according to the government as well, things that harmed a third party. So if two people want to exchange something, and it doesn't harm a third party, it was pretty much permitted from my understanding. But if it did harm a third party, for instance, child porn, it was not allowed because that hurts a child on so many levels, right? Or stolen property, that hurts the owner of the property. So those things were not permitted. It was strictly by the non-aggression principle, which is basically a libertarian principle. Drugs were permitted. It was considered a free choice among individuals. Mostly user amounts of cannabis was what was exchanged on the site. And so he started that. And
yeah, so Silk Road was basically just
I didn't know about it. I didn't know a thing about it. I mean, it just, until he was arrested.
Right. I mean, essentially what he created was just a platform where people could buy and sell goods, an agreement between a buyer and a seller that kept anonymity, and they would use Bitcoin, and they would be able to maintain complete, keep themselves anonymous, essentially.
Yeah, that was the point. And there were a lot of legal things exchanged. You don't hear about that ever, but books and art and electronics and the whole list. And it's on I sent the link, and actually maybe you guys are going to put it up, but there's a whole, and our website also has it, of a lot of things that were listed. It's kind of like an eBay, but it was, private, and it actually plenty of people sell drugs on eBay too. So it's
right.
But is more open about that.
Yeah.
And
exactly, it was eBay. It was basically an eBay that you had to jump through a few extra hoops to get on it and to use it.
Yeah, you had to open a Bitcoin account, you had to fund the Bitcoin account, and you had to know how to use Tor.
Right.
Because Bitcoin was the only currency permitted on the site, which is why Ross has so much support among the cryptocurrency community, because really his vision put it on the map. Bitcoin would not be worth, I looked today, $18,000 if it weren't for Ross really making it prove itself as money. And I've been told by people in the community that he's the second most important person in Bitcoin history after Satoshi Nakamoto, who created Bitcoin. So that was his vision. But Ross's intention was always for freedom and privacy and the individual. He's very, feels very strongly about that. And that's what his intention was. It wasn't to be a drug kingpin. And actually, as a side thing, the Judge Forrest, who gave him that barbaric sentence, basically a death in prison sentence for all nonviolent charges, she said at sentencing, we know that you started the site for philosophical reasons. So she knew he wasn't a drug kingpin. I don't think El Chapo or Pablo Escobar are that philosophical. That's just my guess. They do it for money and power, right? Ross was doing it for philosophical reasons. And she said, but I'm just not sure it's a philosophy you've left behind. And basically she's saying, for that, if you haven't given up that philosophy of voluntary interaction and, do no harm to the third party and non-aggression principle, I'm going to have to condemn you to die in a cage. That's basically what she said in so many words.